We want to share the video, which is 8 minutes and 30 seconds long, by the senior pastor Reverend Abraham Park. He preached this in 2014. It was on February 16, Lord's Actually, this was 4 days before he deposited 14 billion Korean won. So we're going to watch the video. The portion that he mentions about the seminary. Father is in me, and I'm in Father, God. I was going to preach about that verse, but suddenly I changed the topic. Last night, Pastor Philip Lee came to me late at night because I arrived from Korea. And he asked me to pray for our seminary, for our denomination, for about a year. And I heard why we always pray, but we have to focus on prayers for the seminary. I've been misunderstood for about 20 years. But the Korean Association of the Christianity, they freed me from the heresy accusation, and then they accepted our associations when the denomination has a seminary. Actually, we should have a theological seminary for each denomination. And God said in Isaiah chapter 44:24, I, the Lord, am the maker of all things, stretching out the heavens by myself and spreading out the earth all alone. So nobody helped him when he created all things. Nobody helped me. I by myself all alone. I was the only one who made all of all things. That's recorded in Isaiah chapter 44:24 for our faith. So we cannot mix our faith. But people are mixing everything. So, from November 17th of 2013 to 2014, we always sing a song. There is a certain song whenever the President of Korea is inaugurated. So likewise, we have to pray to have the theological seminary. Without prayer, nothing can be done. God is the one who listens to our prayer. He created our eyes. He created our ears. So he's the one who watches with his eyes. And he's the one who listens to our prayers with his ears. So of course, we're going to pray for the theological seminary until we die for the rest of our lives. But we have to have our theological seminary accredited by the Department of Education officially. So, it's not just a bachelor's degree. But we have to have the university and the graduate school. So if we keep praying for the theological seminary for a year, then as the gift of the God, by God's grace, it is going to be given to us. So, please understand that and realize what I'm saying in your prayer. So, think why did I change the topic of and title of the sermon today? We must pray. Prayer is requested. So everyone should cooperate in prayer so that we can have the theological seminary. We are a Hapdong denomination in Presbytery. So we have to have this graduate school and university. How great it is. So this is not liberal theology. This is the theology of God's Word. So God would hear the sound of prayers of Pyeongkong Child Church and then give the theological seminary as a gift to us. If you can believe, say Amen. Amen. How great it is. How wonderful it is. It is so wonderful. So in Exodus chapter 24, God thought about us.
한 번만 생각하면 돼.
When God thought about it. If God takes notice of us.
그 얼마입니까? 장정만
Think about
60만
that.
3,350. 60만 3,350. 아유, 장정만. 어제 할머니 나이 아파면
603,500, and that's the only adult males. If you add females and kids and seniors, that is more than 2 million people. Nobody was trained to be soldiers as they came out of Egypt. But they marched as the army of Christ. Army of God, they marched. So as you remember that word, and then if we pray, until now we couldn't have the theological seminary. But there are a lot of conservative theological seminaries. And if we pray, then we can actually take over conservative theological seminary. And if we have those professors from those conservative theology seminaries, thousands of people would come to our church. We have to have the theological seminary in our denomination, then the church will grow. Just temporary revival like the theological seminary. It's just temporary. You have the campfire and then the fire goes out. Right? But if you have the theological seminary, the fire would keep burning. So this unworthy servant, founding pastor, it's my wish out of my wishes. It's the best wish I have. Please have hope for the seminary. So to Abraham, God gave a secret. If you believe that word, whenever you pray, God reveals the secrets to you for each and every family. So the prayer is to share the love with God, and prayer opens the way to the secret and leads us where to go. You revealed His secret to those who fear Him. So that's what is recorded in Psalm chapter 25 verse 14. Remember that word. So, up to August of 2015, let's pray so that we can have the accreditation of the theological seminary. So I ask for prayer because I can see the chance. How great is that? This is the theological seminary and graduate school. So, this will be recognized by the world. So world recognition. At this time, nobody's going to accredit those theological seminaries. They don't give accreditation. So Christianity almost shut the door. But I can see a small, little bitty hole. I can see the light coming in from that hole. So I ask you in the name of the Lord. So the sermon is almost over. I can talk about this whole day. But it's not just for our Pyeongkang Child Church, but our denomination needs the theological seminary. Then our Pyeongkang Child Church will be revived tenfold, and then everything will go well. So, as you watched the video sermon, this acquisition of the seminary, this project was not just decided one night or by someone else. But we're going to play another video sermon from July 22nd of 2009. But even before, our senior pastor Reverend Abraham Park hoped and dreamed about it. It was his will, and then he even left his legacy and as a last will even when he was leaving and passing. So this is our absolutely important project. So we have to think about it. So today's topic will be the truth on the 14 billion Korean won funds for seminary acquisition. As inherited from our founding theological seminary by the Department of Establishing or acquiring an accredited theological seminary that offers undergraduate and graduate degrees, including bachelor's and advanced to tell you degrees. Before our main speaker comes out. Our Pyeongkang Child Church I've been in this church since middle school and now I am 57 years old. So when I was in middle school, my high school, college, and when I was in the young adult ministry, I was an officer all the time. And I was trained to take orders and obey and just act upon it. I was specially trained to do it anytime. I totally understand what Pastor Philip Lee had experienced. Just do it. Don't do it. I experienced the same thing that Pastor Philip Lee whenever he told us that to do. Kind of situation sounds so natural and familiar more than that. Is the uniqueness of Pyeongkang pastor always told us that he would not exchange one Pyeongkang Child Church member with 3,000 other members of the other trained with God's and we act like an army with absolute obedience. So, please think about that context that we were even misunderstood as the heretic church, because we're so specially trained to act upon his command. So, keep this in mind as our Pastor Philip Lee comes out and shares with us. Part. Rev, can you see the presentation clearly? So I won't make any excuses no matter what the reason is. But I received this special duty, mission, and project from our senior pastor. I couldn't fulfill this mission fully, so I'm so sorry for that. And then because of me, a lot of people raised questions and accusations. And you're worried so much, and I apologize for this trouble. However, the truth was so distorted. So, today as much as possible, I will have a briefing. I'll do my best to present the truth. So from 1st to 9, from number 1 to 9, we will answer the questions and those accusations and allegations raised by the other side. I saw that my folders in my desktop were displayed in their presentation at Samuel Sanctuary. This is clear evidence that someone hacked into my computer and stole my data without my permission. This is a serious violation of my privacy and it is also illegal. It's a violation of the Personal Information Protection Not only that, but they also spread lies about me and humiliated me in front of everyone. This is defamation and it is also a crime. I want to make it clear that the data in my computer was all draft contracts. I made some draft contracts. And once I printed out that contract as a draft and then brought it to them. We had been working on the contracts for some time and we had not yet reached an agreement and then update and revise the contracts. The contracts that they presented were not the final versions and they had no signatures. It was just drafted. So, one thing you have to clearly remember is that the data they presented were not the finals. And then there are a lot of contracts not done. But they took unfinished drafts of contracts and made it seem like they were already signed. So that's how they just spread the news, which is not true. They are simply trying to create a false impression of what happened. I already discussed this matter with my attorneys. We are considering our legal options and we will take appropriate action if necessary. I hope and pray that this matter will not be repeated.
이런 일들이 계속 반복된다면
But if these things will be repeated, then there's no way but we have to pursue legal action, so they need to be held accountable for their actions. The major number 14 billion Korean, 14 billion Korean, one for the seminary.
140억을 횡령했다는 거예요.
They are saying that I took 14 billion Korean won. However, I did not take the money from the senior pastor's office.
어떤 돈이 있다. 제가 가져간 게 아닙니다. 어느 날 원로 목사님께서 저를 부르셔서
One day, the senior pastor called me and asked me to bring him one of my bank accounts.
그래서 저는 원로 목사님이 세우신 그
I thought he was asking for the account for Barrett's Theological Seminary, which was in my name. According to the senior pastor's command, we actually opened the account for Barrett's Theological Seminary in my name. So I thought this was for some official work. I brought him the corporate, business account.
굉장히 원로 목사님한테 지천을 많이 들었어요.
Of course, it was not my personal bank account.
운영한다는 걸 아는데
However, I was criticized and rebuked for bringing the wrong account. The senior pastor said, I know we run Barrett's Theological Seminary, but why did you bring the Barrett's Theological Seminary's account? Move the money to the personal account. He was so mad at me.
누구한테 얼마
We moved the money to my personal
일을 시키고
account.
그대로 저는
Then,
명령을
as he commanded, he said, Hey, send this money as a love offering to someone in the Christian Association.
저는
Because there was a command and order, I did everything according to his order.
지금도 마찬가지지만
So even now, he is an absolute figure and it was back then.
순종하는 겁니다.
Whenever he commanded, I absolutely obeyed it.
저는
Because he moved the money, so it was moved.
명령대로 그 돈을
Because he ordered, I used that money according to his instruction.
그 돈을 옮겼다든지
I did not initiate any transactions myself or request funds from the Treasury
명령이
office.
있어야 옮겨지는 거예요.
It was solely because the senior pastor directed the treasurer to deposit the money that was deposited.
방금도 말씀하셨지만
It's important to consider the context of the situation. As our presider said, he prayed and got an answer and then saw the possibility that we could actually take over one seminary. It was on February 16, 2014, and then he commanded us to pray for about a year. Then he came to me and gave me this mission. So 14 billion Korean won came to my bank account. And what happened? Out of that fund, 10 billion Korean won was to be used for spreading the word of the redemptive history, movement of the word of redemptive history, and taking the seminary in Korea.
해외 신학교 인수를 위해서 쓰여져야 돼요. 그런데 원로 목사님께서 2014년 12월 17일
Another 4 billion Korean won must be used for the acquisition of a seminary aberrate.
제가 해외 신학교 인수를 할 수 없어요.
However, our senior pastor unexpectedly left on December 17, 2014.
2015년
I couldn't take over any American theological seminary because I was in Korea. I could not even go to the USA. How can we acquire a seminary? On March 5, 2015, I returned 4 billion Korean won to the church.
2014년 2월 16일 날 특별히 기도하라고 말씀하시고 성도들한테 기도 부탁하신 다음부터
So ever since he urged us to pray about the seminary on February 16, 2014, until around the time he left, a total of 6,226,400,000 6,226,400,000 Korean won went towards acquiring a seminary, and it was a 100% bank account transaction, so I couldn't even touch it. And also, this donation was designated for the spreading of the word of redemptive history, so we could actually help some branch churches. So I discussed with the original donor who donated money, and then a total of 395 million Korean won was used to help branch churches.
우리 교회에서 인수한다는 게 노출이 돼가지고
However, it was later revealed that Kyungkong Child Church was going to acquire the seminary, leading to a demonstration by the professors and students rejecting our church.
그래서 8억 9,500을 그분한테 맡긴 거예요.
The seminary acquisition was paused, and I gave the remaining balance to the elders who donated the money.
눈물을 흘리면서 제 손을 붙잡고 이 목사
I couldn't just keep this money. I gave 895 million won back to her so that she could keep it for the time being. Before he departed, the senior pastor called me. He expressed his sincere desire in tears, held my hands. Pastor Lee, seminary acquisition is my earnest wish. No matter what, you must complete this work. You must accomplish it at all costs. After he left, I really contemplated. He emphasized the importance of keeping our project. He said, "This is a secret. This must be absolutely confidential, because once this secret is revealed that Kyungkong Child Church is working on it, the opposition would arise. And whenever you have to spend money, discuss it with the donor and get approval." I considered returning the money to the church and living a peaceful life, but I couldn't bear facing the Father without any accomplishment. So I was determined to do His will and stand before Him, regardless of any sufferings and tribulations I may go through. That's why I kept working on it. However, when the acquisition of the seminary was paused due to a demonstration, I returned 895 million Korean won to the donor as instructed by the founding pastor. I did this so that the donor could keep the money for me and charged me with embezzlement, which prevented me from working. I returned 2,483,600,000 2,483,600,000 If you add up all of the money, it comes to the church in response. Not only that, I returned the interest earned of 67,977,567,977,000. I also returned the earned interest to the donor, which was 209,750,000 donors, keeping 809,750,000 Korean won. Then it's 14,277,727,914. That's more than 14,777,727,100 to the church in March 2015, and I actually gave 120 million more. This brings the total amount of money I returned to 14,400,000,000 I received 14 billion Korean won. However, I gave 14,400,000,000 Korean and everything was used for the purpose of the offering. Can you still call me an embezzler? I didn't even use a penny if it was not for the church. Also, out of 14 billion, 4 billion was for the acquisition of a theological seminary abroad, and the senior pastor used some of the 10 billion. On December 17, 2013, we were cleared of the false accusation of heresy. However, in 2014, we were accused again. We had to appeal the decision, and the senior pastor used some of the money to pay for the legal fees. When we published the History of Redemption series, did we use church funds? No. The senior pastor provided all of the funding. He had to spend a significant amount of money on the project. He commanded us to establish the Korean Academy Credit Bank system. Although some people cannot go to college, if they take classes and earn those credits, then eventually they commanded the Korean Academy Credit Bank system. At least, he already spent 700 to 800 million Korean won. But I replenished the funds that the senior pastor spent. I never touched the 14 billion for myself. Applause. Also, they criticized and mocked me. What did you ever do for the seminary acquisition?
우리 교회가
If our church was not accused of heresy, then it's going to be relatively easy to take over the seminary.
우리
But
교회가
we're already
이단이라고
misunderstood by a lot of people.
사람들이 오해를 하고 있는데 그런 상황에서
And we had to hide the identity of our church.
그 학교를 인수하는 게
Do you think it's easy to take over the seminary in this circumstance? I prayed a lot, and I shed a lot of tears. And I was really despised a lot. Whenever I meet those presidents and chancellors and board of trustees members and the professors, can we just meet them?
드려야지. 사례해야지.
I had to treat them well.
돈을 교회에서 줬으면
I had to give them love offerings and thanksgiving. Did the church provide and support that money? When we began this work, the senior pastor knew Professor Jeju Soo because Professor Soo at the Reformed Theological Seminary in Korea was the secretary of the Theological Review Committee. And then, he reported that the senior pastor was not a heretic in 2009. And the senior pastor was so thankful, and he remembered Professor Jeju Soo. Then he said to him, Professor Soo, it's my wish to have an accredited theological seminary. Please search for the candidate seminary that we can take over. Professor Soo introduced and both sides theological that we could actually acquire the seminary if it is 10 billion Korean won.
오늘 목사님이 직접 그 연설에
That's how he began the work and initiated the mission.
그러니까 저를
However,
앞에
the senior pastor could not just go out and meet people with his age. That's why he commanded me to go out and meet them all on his behalf. I had never met any of them before. They were strangers to me, professors, presidents, and reporters. Do you think it was easy to persuade them? I shed bloody tears and worked hard, but they still called me an embezzler and falsely accused me in return. 2. Progress status in the seminary acquisition.
자, 여기 보시면은요.
Look at this chart of organization. It shows how we were able to successfully put people on our side at the seminary we were trying to acquire. We had 4 board members, 5 professors, and 3 administrative staff on our team.
이렇게 해서 학교를 인수하기 위해서
Likewise, I worked tirelessly to take over the seminary.
학교 측에서도
But the school was saying people were demonstrating for we're the heretic church.
자꾸만 계약대로
And then they delayed the contract and they didn't keep the promises. So the process was not easy at all. And I was so sad.
제가 어쩌면은 아니 아버지
I prayed, Father, if you had just stayed with us a little longer, we could have easily completed the acquisition. He surely said it will be done in 2015. If he delayed going and if he just backed us up, then everything would have been easily done. But nobody was helping me.
그래서 제가 잘못했다 실수했다 왜
People
그렇게
told
했니?
me, why did you make a mistake? This was an error. It was not perfectly done. Of course, you can criticize how I worked.
그것을 아버지의 뜻을 이루기
I
위해서
worked tirelessly to fulfill our Father's wish and complete His will.
이 몸이 부셔지도록
I was crushed by the workload, but I persevered with bloody tears. I hope that you can understand my situation and give me credit for my efforts. 3. Did DTU grant a right to operate a cafeteria to my wife? They say that my wife operated the cafeteria, college food dining system at Daehan Theological University. And then they said my wife actually operated for 3 years and earned a lot of money. To be honest, the school offered it.
제
They proposed the right to operate a cafeteria. As I mentioned before, someone hacked into my computer and when they opened all of my files, they found a proposal that the school had offered to my wife. However, my wife refused the proposal, saying no, I do not know how to run a cafeteria. As a result, We did not sign the contract. So, it never happened.
have other
It was on
evidence.
August 15, 2015 that the school brought me a proposal.
그런데
However, guess when that building was
건물이 언제
completed?
완공된지 아십니까? 3년 있다가
It took 3 more years.
5월 17일
The
날
cafeteria
개방이
building
됐어요.
was opened in 2018 after 3 years.
공사해가지고 아직
So they were
건물이
constructing
지어지지도
for
않았는데
3
거기서
years,
매점
and then the
운영하는
building
게
was
있었구나.
not even
그럼
built. And then
어디서
how could I
이익을
even earn
챙깁니까?
money from operating the cafeteria?
운영 안 했어요.
We didn't do it.
매점이
There
없는데
was
어떻게
no
운영합니까?
cafeteria.
공사 중이었는데
They were building it for 3 years. They were constructing and they had an opening ceremony on May 17, 2018.
그 당시에
So at the time, they were saying, we want to remodel the building, we need the money.
그러면
So I said, then I will support the 100 million Korean won for the building construction. So if you see this list, on August 11, 2015, I wired 100 million Korean won.
운영권을 받았다는
But it
이런
wasn't
사천만
130 million Korean won on the proposal. If it was for the cafeteria, that would be 130 million Korean won. But I deposited only 100 million Korean
This is
won as
evidence
a part
that I
of
did not
acquisition
operate
funds.
the
Cafeteria, as
They
the
have
contract
accused.
was never signed. 4. Professor Su for
Fourthly,
president. They said I was trying to establish Professor Jae-ju Su as the president of the seminary, and I gave 530 million Korean won to him. First of all, the 530 million won was included in the 6,226,400,000. I did not wire the funds personally. 226,400,000 won that was were wired directly to the school, not to Professor Su.
5억 3천이라고 써져 있잖아요. 이 돈이 들어간 게 학교로 들어간 거야, 학교로. 그러면 왜
Then why did I try to make him as the president?
2009년에
Because Professor Su, he was the key member of the committee that vindicated us that we are not heresy in 2009.
고마운 일입니까? 그때 그
How thankful it is. He was the secretary of the committee and actually wrote down the report that we are not the heretic church.
원로 목사님이 너무
So our senior pastor really loved Professor Su and cherished him for his help in clearing our senior pastor was so grateful, he commanded us, hey, make him the president of the seminary. I didn't receive a bribe from him and then plan to make him president. Look here, it is in the Christian newspaper, on December 27, 2009.
신문에 나왔잖아요. 이 왼쪽에 계신 분이 서재수 교수님.
This is the Professor Jae-ju Su on the left.
이분한테
The senior pastor directly asked Professor Su to find a candidate seminary for us to take over. Mr. Wang, the president of the Daehan Theological University, as if he should be our president. So this is not a personal matter. Deposited money to Soon I.M. Kim under the name of Barrett Lifelong Education. The fifth accusation is that I borrowed 100 million won from Soon I.M. Kim on October 20, 2014, in the name of the Barrett Remote Lifelong Education Center.
그다음에 나중에 다시 1억을
I paid her 400,000 won in interest every month for a year. And then I deposited 100 million won into her bank account. They said, I embezzled 104,800,000 104,800,000 won in total using my mother. Because 400,000 won multiplied by 12 months is 4,800,000 4.8 million won.
구속사 말씀을 전파하기 위해서
The Barrett Lifelong Education Center was established by the senior pastor. Therefore, if the money came to the Barrett Lifelong Education Center, there is no problem because the money was used for its intended purpose, which is to proclaim the word of redemptive history. Look at his signature. He signed the establishment papers on March 21, 2011. The truth is that Soon I.M. Kim is my mother. She never received 400,000 won every month for 12 months. The accusation that Barrett paid 100 million won to Soon Im Kim is false, because the money was not wired into my mother's bank account. Therefore, it is not embezzlement, because she did not receive the money. My mother had only one bank account at the time. Look at the bank statement from October 2014. Where is the deposit on October 20th? There is no deposit on October 20th. Misappropriated church funds to pay the balance from number 6. The sixth accusation is that I used church money to pay the balance on my new apartment, but the senior pastor told me to move. I then moved to a Jonghung S-class apartment. The price of the apartment was 770 million won.
거기는 제가 7억 7천에 분양을 받았는데 중도금을 7,700만 원씩
I paid the down payment in 6 installments, and I took out 2 loans to cover the cost.
중도금 대출을 받았어요. 그래서 맨날 설명할 때마다 나보고 다르대. 그러면 여러분
The accusers claim that my explanation of how I paid for the apartment there's no way I can recall every digit accurately. This was a long time ago. I couldn't remember accurately because I could not pay all that money in full at once. I paid several times, so I always said that I was helped by my family and friends. My younger brother and then younger sister are well off, so they helped a little bit, and there are a few elderesses who took pity on me. And I cannot reveal their names, but they helped me a little bit. And then they are to testify if they had to testify in court. So some people helped me a little bit to pay for it. Also, originally, we didn't have a retirement payment when the senior pastor was here, but they made a retirement payment, so I had to receive it. So to remove the church's burden, they had the interim retirement payment. Then I received 80 million won from the church, so I used that money for payment. I had various sources of payment except for the loan for the down payment. So I answered as long as I could remember from the top of my head, saying I used the church money to pay the balance. But take a look closely. The accusers also claim that I paid the balance on the apartment on April 27, 2020 and transferred the property ownership. They are saying, at that time, how did you pay the balance and then transfer the property ownership? But I was living in the BNB Queensville, tried to sell my house so that I could move. But there was no buyer, so I asked the realtor to take care of it. Then the realtor suggested giving a Jaeon. This is a copy of the contract of Jaeon is a special Korean system. Instead of paying monthly rent, a renter will make a lump sum deposit which is then returned at the end of the lease term. Jaeon's contract was dated on March the house and the 10% deposit was 24 million won, and I received the balance 216 million on April 23. Then the transfer of the property ownership of a new house was on April 27. So before buying a new house, I received a payment from a tenant. I had a balance to pay 230 million for the new house, but I received 240 million from the tenant. Did I have any reason to use any church money? No, I had more than enough money. The tenant sent me 129,925,129,925,000 won through Samsung Finance, and he wired the balance of 86 million won separately, for a total of 215,925,215,925,000. This is in addition to the 24 million won, the 10% deposit, I received already the allegation and had a briefing. This is the contract for lease on March 3rd. But the name of the owner is Sun Hyun Lee. It's me. My date of birth is January 18, 1965, and that's my cell phone number. The name of the tenant on the lease agreement is also Sun Hyun Lee. However, this Sun Hyun Lee was born in 1981. It was a funny coincidence on April 23rd, the date that the tenant had to pay the balance of the lease. The house was sold to a new owner named Min Sung-won. Min Sung-won bought the house with the existing I could not remember if Sun Hyun Lee was the renter for the lease or the one who bought the house. I entrusted the sale of my apartment to a realtor, and I did not pay attention to the details of the numbers deposited in my bank account. But I didn't really care about the process. I even checked the Ministry of Land Infrastructure and Transport actual transaction price checks. The accusers said the renter's name is not Sun Hyun Lee. As of 2023, of course, the owner is a different person. I told them when I leased it in 2020. The tenant was Sun Hyun Lee. So look at screen capture of the Ministry of Land Infrastructure and Transport actual transaction. The transaction was March 3rd, and then down payment is 24 million won. It's recorded here. So is this Jaeon's contract real or not? It's authentic. You can search the registry to confirm this. And look, this is the house price for sales, not for the rental. The apartment was sold on April 23, 2020 for 290 million won. So actually I gained 50 million won more after I sold it. Why? Because of the Jaeon. It was not necessary for me that I have to use the church money. There was no reason for it. Embezzled church funds to pay debt. 7. They're accusing me of misappropriating church funds to pay off the debt on my old apartment. They found a deed to the apartment that shows that the debt was paid off on September 11, 2014. A mortgage statement or payoff letter is only issued when the debt is paid off in full. This can be done in one lump sum or in installments. In my case, I made a final payment in installments, and then the lender issued a payoff letter. If their accusation is true, then I must have used church funds to pay off the debt on September 11th. However, I only have one bank account that contains church funds. If I had used church funds to pay off the debt, then there should be a corresponding transaction on my bank statement showing a withdrawal of 14 from this bank statement, which shows the church funds that I have for the seminary. There is no transaction showing that I used 14 proves that I did not embezzle the land house under my eldest daughter. The 8th allegation is that I have a 40 pyong 1,400 square feet house in Gwangju under the name of my eldest daughter. And then when they spread the rumor, some of the saints came to me and said, "You're such a bad pastor. You had this big apartment." But the house is actually an old, rundown house. So on the left corner, you see my parents' house and the neighbor's house on the right. They shared this farming field together. And then my father's neighbor he was begging to my dad, "Please buy this house. There's nobody who will buy my house, but I have to sell it." The entire property was 40 pyong, 1,400 square feet. The house was 18 pyong, 640 and then it has been 9 declared land value. The individual declared land value was 46 million won. So then this 48 million won house became 62 million won. Is it real estate investment? So my dad knew that if it was less than 50 million won, then he didn't have to pay the gift tax. So he decided to give this house to his eldest granddaughter as an inheritance. Shall we see the photo of the house?
그 집을 한번 보겠습니다.
Black.
자, 이 앞에
So
첫
here's the
번째
field where they have onions and green
저기
onions,
양파도
Napa
심어져
cabbages,
있고,
and lettuce here.
저기 상추도 심어져 있고, 요 지금
This blue
요
house,
파란색
this is the
지붕이
house under the name of my daughter, before the roof was leaking.
그전에는 지붕이 너무 다 쓰러져가는 집이었는데 요
So my
지붕을
dad
저희가
changed the roof because it was leaking when there was
그리고
rain.
그때 살 때부터 지금까지 아무도 안 사는 집이에요.
And since then, nobody has been living here. It's an unoccupied house, and this black house is my parents' house. They're together, they're sharing the yard. There's nobody interested in this house except my father. So the total of the 40 pyong was 48 million won at the time. The house is not a valuable asset. I checked the individual declared land value. The land value in 2015 was 360,600 multiplied by 100. That's 48,284,341. The house is currently worth 282 million won, 500 or 700 million won. 9. Earned interest by lending money to pastors? Lastly, they are saying that I earned interest by lending money to our pastors. I am a pastor myself, and I was touched by how desperate some of my fellow pastors were when they came to me for help. They told me their stories, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I had the money. But this is for the seminary from the senior pastor. I could not lend the money. I knew that if I once lent the money, word would get out and everyone would come to me for money. Even though I did not tell anyone, some pastors still came to me asking for help. To say no. But I said, I don't have money, but I will introduce one eldress. Because my mother is an eldress and I'll ask her for you. Therefore, I lent my personal money with her name. It was not the church funds. I did not tell the pastors that the money was mine, and they paid it back to my mother's bank account. I then asked my mother to send the money back to me. It would have been a problem if the money had been church funds, but it was my personal money, so there was no problem. The first pastor said he would pay back 500,000 won every month. I lent him the money, and he paid me back as promised. Another pastor came to me and asked for money. I lent him the money from the first pastor's repayment. I didn't lend the money 105 million to 4 pastors at once. But it happened over 2 years. They asked for 2 million won, about $1,500, or 12 million so I had that kind of money. I was able to lend them the money because they were in need and were crying, and I felt sorry for them. But some people in the church have accused me of being a moneylender and charging usury. I'm a pastor, so I didn't want to charge the interest. But because I said it's not me but it's eldress. So it was really low interest so that they can just pay back little by little. So look, there's a pastor A, B, C, D, and this is the total interest that I received from 4 of them. 480,000 won, 800,000 won, 780,000 won, but it even bothered my conscience that I received interest from them. So secretly I just gave some extra money as a gift to them. Oh, just have a nice meal with your family. And I sent 1,331,000, 1,331,000 I gave 1 million won, and then to C, 2 million won, not to the pastor D. I can explain the details, but it would be embarrassing for the person and their family.
그 집안 사람들한테 인격 모독이 될 수 있어요.
I do not want to cause them any further pain, so I will not share the details. I hope you understand. If the pastors were in trouble and went to the senior pastor, he would give them the money for free.
아버지는 그냥 주셨을 거예요. 근데 내가 그렇게 할 수는 없잖아요.
However, I could not do that.
이런 방법으로 도와드리려고
I wanted to help them in secret, but that backfired and now I am being accused of wrongdoing. I hope you can understand my situation. Applause.
그리고요.
So also, the senior pastor had something to spend for the Korean Christianity Association, an evaluation with the heresy, an appeal to the court, or publication of the History of Redemption series.
문제라든지 또 구속사 책을 낸다거나 또는 어떤 분을 도와줘야 되는데 돈을 보내야 되잖아요. 그러기 위해서 편안하게 제 통장에 넣어놓고 쓰셨는데
So, he had to just have someone, and then he just put the money into my bank account. But no matter what he does, it's not going to be illegal, because it was on February 11th. On February 11, 2001, the church session meeting decided to entrust the senior pastor all the right to spend the church money. So, we entrusted him with the authority to spend church funds. This means that the senior pastor could not be held liable for any illegal arrangement for the senior pastor, acting within the bounds as it allowed him to use church funds as he saw fit. That's how the senior pastor transferred the money to my bank account so that I could handle the transactions without the church's approval. The president of the seminary was asking 10 billion to take over the seminary because the senior pastor promised and agreed to give 10 billion. But I didn't have that kind of money because the senior pastor spent the money already. Then he left us. I had to spend the money when I met with professors, journalists, and other media representatives. The senior pastor began transferring money to my personal bank account on March 21st.
완전 개인 통장 옮기실 때 그때 올 목사님께서 저한테 그러셨어요.
And he called me and told me, Pastor Lee, I need to increase this money. How can we do that? I replied, you can put it in a savings account, to increase money, a time account CD, a mutual fund, or an investment in gold. I answered as far as I know. Oh, the fund sounds great, and then move that money to fund and increase it. He commanded it. The founding pastor first chose a money market fund MMF because it allows for easy deposits and withdrawals and has a slightly higher interest rate than a savings account. That's why the money was moved to the MMF fund. When the fund earned interest, he was so happy to hear that. So I understood the heart of the senior pastor because he's saying that to move the money to the fund and then increase it. I understood that the founding pastor wanted me to invest the money and increase it so that he could spend more money and I could replenish the funds. That's why I invested the money. I graduated from commercial high school and I graduated Seoul National University College of Commerce and Economics. The golden rule of investing is to diversify your portfolio. This means not putting all your eggs in one basket. You should diversify your investments by investing in a variety of assets, including low-risk, low-return assets like savings accounts and CDs, and high-risk, high-return assets. And about in 2017, all of a sudden, then there's a virtual currency investment and I thought it would work. So partially I invested in virtual currency and you can frequently move in and out. So, it was easy to earn and return was high. So please understand it was unavoidable to invest. I understand that investment is a controversial topic. If there are any legal issues, I will take full responsibility. I was determined to take full responsibility when I just took a risk to fulfill his wish. And eventually we replenished, and then we had a profit, and 14 billion won became 14 billion 400 million won. So we earned more. We had a profit. So the senior pastor spent the money, and then I treated other people well when I had to meet them. I paid all for their transportation. So I'm unworthy. I'm not perfect. But this is all Father's grace that I came so far. If I am found to have done something wrong, I will take full responsibility according to civil law. But now you understand all the processes. I want to assure you that I did not have any intention to embezzle or risk our church. I also did not have any intention to make a personal profit. My only intention was to help our church acquire the seminary. If the people who receive the money for the seminary acquisition do not accept the contract, they will be facing trial for embezzlement. How can they avoid the trial? They can avoid the trial by simply handing over the seminary to our church. That's it. Therefore, please keep praying for the seminary. We have already invested about 6,200 million Korean won for acquisition. We are confident that we can acquire the seminary. And our senior pastor really hoped this for. Our senior pastor has said that once we fulfill this dream, our church will revive tenfold, and there will be a tenfold revival. So I ask you to pray for this. Likewise, I have been working diligently to fulfill the Father's command. I have followed his words to the letter. When commissioned workers are working, they may make mistakes or errors. It is important to correct these errors and make sure that the work is done in the best possible way. But then they falsely accused me as an embezzler, that I took all those 14 billion Korean won. They tried to remove me. Then how can we fulfill the wish of our senior pastor? So, don't look at the small things, but think about the grand vision of our senior pastor and plan. Please lead this matter well so that the vision can be fulfilled. Thank you. Presider Elder Sue. One thing I want to mention and point out is a log, about the daily log. One of the term they used when they accused you, see, they are saying that Pastor Lee planned for this. He had a plot, and the Pastor Lee kept the daily log. And the daily log began on February 16th. That was the second service after the senior pastor announced and then called us to pray for the seminary. That was the second service on February 16th. Then Pastor Lee believed and trusted that he will begin this work. And then he began to take this daily log in that day, on that day, very day and in the evening. So because the senior pastor commanded something, then he began to take note. That's February 16th, 2014. The money will be deposited after 4 days since. But they were saying people just planned to embezzle the money 4 days before he got the money. But that's not fair anyway. Through these briefings and explanations, of course, he actually clearly explained a few times. But I hope and pray that all these allegations be gone. In conclusion summary, he didn't have any intention to use it and he didn't use it for personal purpose, so there is no personal gain legally. I said to conclude this session, like I said, 5 years before he went to heaven. That was July 22nd Wednesday service in 2009. During the announcements time, he mentioned about seminary and he said we actually have an accreditation from the Department of Education and he needed the money and he needed 7 professors, 7 doctors and he tried so hard for a year, but he couldn't fulfill the money and he didn't have the doctors and he only had the 2 doctors available, so he had to return the accreditation. Let's listen to it. I don't know. So please believe what I said. Please just believe this blessing no matter who says. I believe like that. Okay, understood. Did you write down Masa have take courage and then bold, say boldness. Once you receive the word of God, then you will be a beautiful people and your sons and daughters will be looked beautifully from others. No matter what they say, that's how I believe. Okay, did you write it down? Okay. So be strong and courageous. Share the word. Okay. After all in Hebrew, what is that? Don't forget that word in Greek. That's after the affliction. If you don't forget about this fact, about Job's suffering, then you will become the best saint. Who knows the secret? Thank you is your most. So, and once our pastors graduate from the Reformed Seminary, of course, there are seminaries like Westminster and Reformed the local seminary. But Faith Theological Seminary is very famous. People recognize it. I met the president, the song from the Reformed. And when I shared, he was surprised to hear that. Oh, that Faith Theological Seminary is a great theological seminary. Once our pastors receive a doctorate degree, then that's unprecedented. I received this answer 20 years ago when I was praying. Listen carefully. 7 years ago, we received the accreditation from the Department of Education, but we didn't have that $4 billion. We have to pay the $4 billion and then we needed 7 doctors. But we didn't have the 7. But we have 2 and journalists owners of the newspaper. They came to me, Senior President, never return the accreditation. Don't give it up. So if I just tell the things then they can't afford. So there'll be just burdens I couldn't say to anyone, but I was just agonizing it. And I tried this and that and I was trying for a year. But I had to return the accreditation saying that once we are prepared that we're gonna try that accreditation. So it was not college but graduate school. I didn't have a $4 billion month or 4 billion Korean won and I didn't have 7 doctors. So how frustrating it is. I received an answer 20 years ago and send the 20-30 doctors and then everything will be done according to the prayer. If you can help these ministers who are doing the doctorate degree to her, our pastors should study 5 more semesters.
미국 가서 시험 쳐야 너무 내가
And then lastly, they will go to the United States and then study 1 semester there as a residency.
학위 받은 교목사
Then pastor with a doctorate from the United States and also from Oxford.
이런 분들이 교수입니다.
They are the professors. They are good professors 18 hours a day. They have to study. They don't even give 5 minutes a break.
여유 안 줍니다. 우리 목사님들 희망 요새 목회하는
So our pastors are busy doing ministries and preaching and then construction work and study for the seminary.
통과 또
So the second semester will start from August to 8th.
성도님들 많이
So please pray for the pastors a lot and my heart is pounding. I'm so happy. I'm excited.
참 신앙다와
So once we have pastor from the seminary and then this professor song, president song from other seminary was jealous.
그러더니 알았죠?
Okay. Did you understand? I have one question when they raise the allegations like that. Why did you keep silent? And then after our hearts were all pricked and then after the divisions are done, why did you have this explanation? After all, it was too late. I was wondering why it was so late to answer. If you gave this explanation from the beginning, then I think we didn't really hurt our feelings too much because we could have prayed with you. Why did you try alone? So from now on, please react right away. First of all, so this project about the seminary taking over, as you saw the video sermon, we earned accreditation in 2002, but we didn't have 4 billion won and we didn't have 7 professors. So we returned the accreditation in 2003 to the Department of Education. So since then he earned for it, but because our church is being accused as a heresy, we couldn't do it publicly. So he solemnly commanded me to proceed this in secret. It was secret. So if I reveal all the details, then we couldn't maybe take over that's why I worried, and this was my first time. I never experienced like this, and then they were suing me and I went through the investigation with the police and I didn't know what was wrong or right. I didn't know what is right or wrong. I just did everything that he commanded me. What is crime? And the policeman was saying, if you did this, that will be crime. If you did this, so from then on, I studied about this. What is embezzlement? And what kind of crime is that if this was the case or that was the case? So I studied and then asked the legal opinions. For example, if the one who entrusted the money also entrusted the investment, then if I lose all the money, that's not sin, that's not crime. Morally, that's not good. But even though you lose money, it's not crime. So through those studies, I learned that, oh, I have no crime. So I didn't do anything wrong legally. Then I was able to speak up. So I'm so sorry that it was so delayed. But our Father will not lose anything. So through this, the better thing will happen to us to the bedroom. That was a really nice question. Very good question. So prayer, we could have been praying for us, for him. So regarding that, please evangelize and bring more people so that we can fill up to the second floor of the Mara sanctuary, and also pray for the elders. Our active elders are participating in the session meeting, and then usually they sit over here whenever we have a prayer meeting. They are gathered here. So they need a lot of prayers and encouragement. Why? So for the past 1.5 to 2 years, we had general session and province say meetings in Morris San or Jerusalem San. But our hearts were so wounded because the session meeting was so illegal. So we couldn't even sleep at night. We suffer from insomnia. Me too. So a lot of people are under great stress. So please pray for the elders more. And when you leave, of course, but if you can please say hi and greet them so that they can be strengthened and encouraged, empowered so that they can persuade all those elders who are in the neutral ground. Then we will try our best for the session meeting. So we're going to take one more question. Okay. Give the mic, I think we're starting. So Park 4. So our father's wish was the seminary create a seminary, right? And then it was needed for the word written history before our father's passing. He asked to keep it in secret. How was it revealed? How did they know and then raise the allegations and raise the issues? Please tell me how it was happening. And then secondly, I know it's 9 elders who sued you. Is there anything we can do as a church? And thirdly, on March 17th, that Pastor H presented to the young others and others. And then he read all those unreasonable allegations. I was there, but I couldn't even say something because it's speechless. How can he reveal those allegations in public? And should we just pray for it, and then keep silent? Can we do something? Can we defend ourselves legally? Maybe we should have done that so that our church won't be in trouble this much. So that's what I feel sorry for that. First of all, the first question in 2019, early 2019, from late 2019 to early 2019, there was a professor our side secretly. He became a professor of the 10, the seminary. And then that professor contacted me one day. I have a great idea. It will expedite the taking of the seminary. So he arranged the meeting with the professors and then the president of the Students' Association. So please come here, and the pastor gave explanation. So I met them in the restaurant. But in my heart, I didn't want to meet them, but the professor was asking to meet them and he was on our side.
만났거든요.
So I went there and meet them.
이제 그 이야기를 하다 보니까
So while I was sharing,
쪽 교수님들이랑 학생회장이랑 그분들이
they were proactive. They were very
as soon as
positive.
possible.
We want to hand over the seminar to Pyongyang district. We're going to help.
그래서
So, because they were saying like that we knew, we know they said we know that you're the senior pastor of the church.
월 목사님이 이 일을 시작했다는 걸 우리가 다 안다. 막 이제 이렇게 유도 질문을 하면서
And then this is what senior pastor will need.
제가 평양교회 제일교회 담임 목사라는
So it was true that I was the senior pastor of the church. It was already known. They already knew and the prophets are already told that I'm the senior pastor of the church.
제가 그걸 부인할
So I couldn't deny it because they already knew. So I just admitted that I'm the senior pastor of church even though it was a secret. And I said, well, you have a lot of debt in the seminary and then I'm gonna pay the debt and we want to take the seminary and then make a worldly renowned seminary.
거든요. 근데 그분들이 그걸 다 녹음을 한 거예요.
So please help. And then they recorded all of that and use it against us.
그 당시에 총장
Then they started demonstration. This president and the board of the trustee members are trying to sell our school to the heretic church and they were trying to excommunicate those president.
19년 초에 신문에 발표가 되고 이제 우리 교회에서 인수하려고 한다는 게
And then so we were on the newspaper in 2019, early in 2019, and people began to know they were trying to take over the seminary.
이보 전진을 위해서 일부 후퇴해야 되겠습니다.
And in March 2019, the president and the board of trustee members came to me and just let's say that we're not going to take over the seminary so that they can be quiet for
제가 이거
now.
써주면 이제 완전히 끝나버릴 것 같아요.
Let them cool down. But I thought if I really say that it's going to be done, it will be failed.
수십억이 들어갔고
So I said we spent a lot of money already and we have processed so much, then you have to pay. You have to refund the money.
처음부터 학교 인수를 목적으로 돈을 투자를 했지만 그때마다
That's why every time I invested the money for the purpose of the taking over the seminary.
너희들이 돈을 갚아야
But I received the receipt and then for the security, I received the papers so that they can write down and they're going to return it.
이명각서를 응? 만약에 내가
And I asked them to write the secret contract.
인수할 의사가 없다라고 써주지만
I'm gonna write outwardly that we're gonna give it up to take over the seminary.
투자된
But if we cannot take over the seminary, then you're gonna refund the money. And if you cannot refund the money, then you will hand over the operation of the seminary and I will reveal our contract.
그리고
Then the president was in trouble. So he wrote the secret contract. Then I wrote out worthy.
그런데 그 이명각서가 있었기 때문에
We're not gonna take over the seminary, but because we had this contract, I was not arrested. That's how it was revealed. But the school is saying that still there is no one who would take our seminary except the church.
학교를 인수할 곳이 없다는 거예요. 그래서
So we are trying to find a way to take over the seminary.
찾아보고 있습니다.
So please keep praying for it.
그다음에 이제
Next, there are elders who sued me. But I think there's nothing I can do for now because I still have to go to the police station next week and then I have to go through one more investigation after the investigation didn't deserve.
경찰서 가서 마지막 조사를 한 번 더 받아야 돼요. 그럼 조사가 이제 끝나면 경찰에서 검찰로 옮기는
The
것을
case will be moved, transferred from police station to the prosecutors.
불송치가 되고 끝나버리는데 송치는
It's going to be transferred because they request the arrest warrant and if prosecutor doesn't do anything about it, then it's iron.
모순이 되기 때문에 송치를 경찰이 할 거예요. 그러면 검찰에서 다시
So because it's an irony, they will just pursue it and then the prosecutors will investigate me maybe 1 or 2 months. Then the prosecutors would decide whether they would charge me to the court or not.
근데 불기소 이건 기소할 필요가 없다. 재판할 필요가 없다. 그러면
But if they decide not to charge me, then is not guilty a little bit over? Please keep praying for the case.
아직은 제 재판 결과가
So until I have this resort, I cannot do anything about the elders.
할 수가 없다는 거 말씀드리고 싶고요. 그다음 세 번째는
Yeah.
이제 이런 명예
Thirdly, this defamation and private information violation are spreading the rumors on truth, a lot of crimes.
범죄적인 게 많이 있는데 그것을 뭐좀 고발을 해야
But you know, it's really hard to sue them because senior pastor said not to sue.
또 고발 안 하면 장로님 말씀대로 계속 또 할 것 같아요.
If I don't sue, then like you said, they're gonna try more. So I don't have solutions right now.
그것도
But even that, I believe that Father will give us the wisdom and the lead us. So I cannot tell all the details, but it looks like we're under persecution. But it can be a very good chance to avert the situation.
뒤집을 수 있는 어떤 또 계기가 될 수가 있어요. 하나님의 역사는 하나님의
So Father's work is different from humans' thinking. So God's thought is different than ours. So as Father God leads me, I would just do whatever we have to do.
감사합니다.
Thank you. So a lot of time has passed after 2 questions.
혹시 지금 이제 막 뭐가 올라오는데 이거 안 하고 못 가겠다는 말씀.
And if there's any questions lastly, raise your hand. This is really the last one. Last question that I'm Sammy Lee from the 3rd District.
교구 총무 이샘입니다. 140억에 대한
So we understood about the 14 billion won and I met some people raised the allegations again.
활동을 하면서 저희가 이제 언론 목사님 때부터 유지해오던 평강 감사라든가 또 구독자 센터
You like this one?
헌금을 하고 있습니다.
We have Pyeongkong Days, Thanksgiving and the R Center Mission Fund. We have a lot of offerings. And then some of the cell group members are saying that Professor Philip will use this money for personal purposes. So they are saying Senior Pastor Philip Lee for 6 years was using the church money for his personal purpose. Just a few 1 or 2, several members are saying those rumors. So we are in trouble. We're trying to defend you, but they don't recognize it, they don't accept it. They stopped paying the offering to the church. So can you explain about that? Simply need to have? Yeah, as I became the senior pastor, I emphasized this a lot. The transparency of the church treasury.
지출에 대해서는
So all the expenses must be transparent.
추구했던
That's the policy that I sought.
우리 교회는요.
So our church, we have a financial committee and there are committee members.
그래서 그분의 사인이 있어야만
So without their approval and signature, we cannot spend the money as a senior pastor because I need the money to do something. I cannot say send the money to me to the treasury office, and they won't send the money without signature of the committee members of the Thanksgiving offering or a general budget.
제가 평강 감사라든지 교회 재정이라든지 또 여러 가지 그 감사 헌금에 대해서 일어난 장 저는 요구한 적도 없고
I never asked to use that money and I never used it.
그렇게 못하게 돼 있어요.
Our church system is like that. It's impossible. I can just use my salary from church.
운동센터 이사장으로 있지만은
And then even though I'm the president chairman of the art center, we have a rate.
그다음에 뭐 교통비는
Once I go to the
5만 원,
history
지역에
seminar,
따라서 2만 5천
one
원.
lecturer will be
이게 다 정해져 있어요.
100,000 won.
그래서 그 룰에 따라서 2시간 강의했으면 20만 원, 4시간 강의했으면
And then
40만
if it is
원이
domestic
제
or distance,
통장으로
look,
그
then
세금
there's a
떼고 있는 거예요.
transportation money.
그렇게 받지. 제가 임의적으로
Everything is according to
직원들한테
the rule,
어디다가
and
돈을
after
넣어라,
tax,
어떻게
I
써라
receive it.
지시할 수가 없어요. 저는 그렇게
So I
해본 적이
cannot
없고.
even order them to
그래서
spend the money
이
like
재정에
this or that.
대해서만큼은 우리 교회처럼 투명한 교회가 없어요.
So our church is so clear and transparent about spending the
쓸
money.
수가 없습니다. 그러니까
It's never
저도
possible to
마찬가지고
spend the money.
지금 대리회장님이 대리회장
Me
하신다
too.
할지라도 그분도
And then even the
본인
provision
마음대로
senior
쓸수
pastor,
없는
even now he
시스템이에요.
cannot even use
그건
one
아셔야 돼요.
penny without
그래서
approval.
교회 돈은 절대 새 나가지 않습니다. 그건
So the
명확해요.
church money will be saved.
이상입니다.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
평강 진실은 제1회 찬양회를 마무리하고
So this was the
있는데
part 1.
다음번 일주일 후에
After 1 week, next week, we will talk about the issue of this money in senior pastor's room.
다루게 됩니다. 그 이유를 말씀드릴게요. 아까 어떤 분이 질문해 주신 것처럼 어떤
Why, as someone pointed out, when we cannot do the fact check and explanation, then we will be misunderstood greatly.
받게 되더라고요. 그래서 굉장히 많은 오해 중에 하나가 뭐였냐면 특히 제 20대
I have a daughter. She's in 20s and also a daughter in her 30s. He said, if you walk down on the street and then you just bump into each other or you had a minor strife,
국민들의 거리에서 이렇게 어떻게 하다 몸이 부딪혀가지고 뭐 사소한 시비가 붙어서 혹시라도 이게 사실적으로 불려가게 되면
and then if you have to go to the police station after they hear each other, the policeman will ask you one thing: who began to attack each other.
그리고 비성사건이나 교회 내 분쟁을 조정하는 그런 사건들
That's very important question. And other mega churches have all those struggles and strives.
어느 쪽에서 먼저 총을 쐈느냐 그 총이라는 것은 뭐
But attorneys will ask who shot first.
치광이 아니고 강목부대가 나온 경우 있다고 했었는데 아니면 고소고발을 과연
It's not gun but violence who began the violence.
중요시한답니다.
That's very important. And then for a while, something was misunderstood.
고소고발은 고소고발이 아니라 인지수사였다. 즉 경찰에서
Senior pastor, Pastor Philip Lee, was under investigation by the police.
누가 고소나 고발을
Not because someone sued him.
했다고 잘못 알려진 바가
That was wrong information. You tell a lot of people, why don't you do? I even have a copy of the paper. But last year in March, some elders sued him.
고발장을 제출해서 거기에 대한 그 사본이 있는 상태.
So we have a copy of it.
저희가 적어도 저희가 먼저 고소하고
So we didn't attack or sue them first.
경고 사건에 대한 것들도 그 작년 3월에 먼저 고소.
So we were shot first in March last year, and then because some senior elders were so angry and we
이제 장로님 두 분께서 가만히 있으면 안 되잖아. 그래가지고 6월
cannot be like this. That's why they sued senior pastors' sons. But as you know, they were saying we began first. We began to attack first and we sued first.
즉 자기들 고소가 아니고 고소고발은 우리가 먼저 한 거다 이렇게 말씀을 하시기 때문에
That's what they see. So including that fact and truth.
일주일 후에 이 시간에
After 1 week, we're going to have the part 2 and then talk about the details.
불가하시고 오늘
So please go back safely. Thank you so much.
기도는 다 같이 하시겠습니다. 네, 지금